here's the thing. Over the course of the pandemic, I think a few things have happened that have really impacted the relevancy or significance of data across the TV market. So one, there's been massive growth in terms of the level of streaming in households, right? So one of the things that we saw in late Q1 2020 into early Q2 was that over the course of 6 weeks, audience growth in terms of the amount of time, the amount of data created from streaming on connected TV and audio increased about what we predicted would happen over 6 quarters in just 6 weeks. And so what we saw was one of the second challenges that a lot of people thought they would have in terms of data across streaming media was lack of scale, lack of veracity or the ability to execute. And what people were able to see very quickly was that the scale was there. And it was just a matter of making sure that you had the interoperability and the ability to execute upon it. And so that brings me to the third thing that we've seen is because the audience size has grown so dramatically, because the demand for data from advertisers has grown so dramatically over that time, is there's been a lot more conversation around interoperability and a lot more desire for all the important parties. So from the media companies to the data providers to the agencies, wanting to make sure that they can use data in a scalable and transparent way across the various touch points, whether that's programmatic or direct.
That's really interesting. What new opportunities is this proliferation of data opening up for media owners and for advertisers? What problems does this proliferation of data help to solve?
So I won't go into all the problems that it solves, but one that I really will focus on, which I think is particularly important for media owners, as well as the advertisers trying to figure out how to engage audiences across, what in reality is a very fragmented media system, is that data is almost a great equalizer, right? So one of the things that we found, going back to 2015, 2016, you would almost have to talk agencies into buying connected media or the importance of reaching their audience on connected media if it wasn't from the big premium publishers that they were aware of, right? And the claim that they would say is that they're looking for a more premium audience. And what we believe is that a premium audience is being able to find their desired audience for your product or your service or your company at scale in a consistent, privacy conscious way. That's a premium audience. So one person's audience is premium here, may not be considered premium to the next one. And what data allows you to do by understanding the demographics, the household income, the brand propensity or purchase behavior of a household or a device or an individual, it becomes this great equalizer. And so sometimes publishers that may not be able to get the type of advertisers to consider them, when they're able to have a third party validating that they do in fact have the right demographic or the right purchase potential in terms of their audience, I think that has been great in terms of opening up the channels and avenues by which that advertisers can reach media companies, and that's really helped media companies a lot. At the same time, I don't want to make that seem as though that's making it so that the work and the investments that larger media companies are making on leveraging first-party data or third-party data is not important. I think what the differentiator becomes is really back to that whole concept of content is king. If you have the premium content or the in-demand content, you'll be able to attract more of these premium audiences, as opposed to without data, a lot of it being uncertain and people just assuming that you may be reaching your audience or over indexes. I think data allows people just far more efficiency and efficacy in terms of reaching their audience, regardless of where they may be.
That's really interesting. Now, I guess with the explosion of data in terms of volumes, we also have issues around data quality and veracity that we need to be paying more attention to. How big a problem do you think data quality is at the moment? Do we need some kind of data accreditation or auditing to give buyers confidence that the data they're buying is high quality?
So yeah, so there's two parts to that question. I'll start with the latter part first. In terms of having some sort of third party that could be a source of accrediting or validating data, I think that is going to be very difficult. And the reason being is that there is no single source of truth to understand across all the myriads of potential data what is exactly true or not, right? Does this person in fact like over-index shopping on this particular brand, or are they in market to travel to a specific international country, or do they in fact drive a certain type of car and the lease is expiring in 90 days? There's such a broad amount of data that's available. I think finding a impartial source of truth to be able to validate that is virtually impossible. What is possible, though, and what we do at TransUnion is when we're talking about, the true audience data marketplace, which is TransUnion's solution, is far and away the most used data marketplace for targeting across connected media, both for programmatic as well as direct campaigns. And one of the things that we do when we're evaluating data the demand for different third-party data providers to come into the platform is we talk about things like, how is the data sourced? How often is it updated? What are the, what are you doing to be privacy conscious or protect consumer privacy? What types of sources of identity are used to be able to come up with the data? And so you make sure there's certain standards in terms of the practices that are used for data, but you can't go and check every single source of data to then validate if it's then correct. I think going back to the first part of the question, in terms of data quality and veracity, I think what's far more an issue now that we see is actually identity, right? So the issue isn't so much that a third-party data provider or a first-party data provider was just wrong with the data that they collected or aggregated. That's far less of an issue. Where we do see a challenge is if that data was collected from web or from offline or from a mobile device. How do you correctly associate that audience or that data to the right connected TV, to the right smart speaker, all right? And so that's really where we've devised this concept of you have to have a PhD in identity. And what that means is you need to be able to understand how to reconcile data to people, right? Individuals, so that could be email address, name and address, et cetera, to households. Things like connected TVs or media is bought and sold on a household level. So it could be multiple individuals that you need to be able to accurately associate the data back to a household. Same thing with smart speakers, which have grown tremendously, even more so than connected TV over the last 24 months or so. And then the last is devices, right? Because people have multiple devices. And so where I see things breaking down so much is people can start off with great quality data, but if when they want to actually make it actionable, it loses all of the scale, or it's mapped to a graph that can't focus on people, households, and devices equally, then it becomes inaccurate, or it's not consistent because when you map it to one publisher or one programmatic platform, it's different from the next. And that's really where at TransUnion, we spend a lot of our time on making sure that there's appropriate levels of scrutiny in terms of what goes into providing the data, not necessarily validating if it's exactly right or not, but that it's a certain caliber and quality, and then making sure that it can be associated at scale and speed and in a privacy conscious way to the correct people, households, and devices.